Well, hello, my darlings. Yes, I am back. I'm back on YouTube. But even though I had a relatively big break from YouTube, I definitely did not back off on the reading. I managed to read 275 books last year. That's an all-time record for me. Clearly, I was trying to dissociate from the realities that were 2024. But it's a new year, and I don't know that I'm going to meet that same goal again, but I thought since there's so many and it has been a little while since I was last on, I might try and do reviewing each book that I read in 2024 in one sentence-ish. I have written a few notes, so if you do see me looking down, that's why. And that's why I can also say that some of these are more than one sentence, but I'm going to try and keep the review as short and sweet as possible. Many of these books have been in previous videos, so I do go a bit more into them in those ones. But if you're looking for a deep dive into any of the books that are sort of in the later half that I haven't really done anything on YouTube about, I will be posting more in the future. I have many plans to get back into this a lot more regularly, and I hope you're excited as me to continue this journey together. So I was going to go by reading order, but there have been a few series that I've sort of worked my way through as well. So I thought instead of breaking all of those up, I would sort of clump them together. But otherwise, this is generally the layout of the year and how I read these books over the year. So let's go. So I started off the year with a couple of graphic novels or comics. I got this for Christmas back in 2023, so they were the first ones that I picked up, and that is Saga Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. I haven't gone any further than that at this stage, but that's purely because these are quite pricey, not by any means any sort of negative review on the comic book itself. It's an absolute riot. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I can't wait to get into more. Hopefully, I may be able to find them at one of the local libraries soon. We'll see. Now, this one I definitely won't go too much into. I talked about them incessantly last year, and they are the St. Mary's Chronicles by Jodie Taylor. So, I managed to read through books 7 to 13 with the short stories that are interspersed in between. So I read Lies, Damn Lies and History, My Name is Markham, Desiccated Water, and the Rest is History, Perfect Storm, Christmas Past, An Argumentation of Historians, The Battersea Barricades, The Steam Pump Jump, and now for something completely different, Hope for the Best, When Did You Last See Your Father, Why Is Nothing Ever Simple, Plan for the Worst, The Muse of History, The Ordeal of the Haunted Room, Another Time, Another Place, A Catalogue of Catastrophe, and The Good, the Bad, and the History. If you don't already know, I'm obsessed with this series. Pretty much all of the books in the series are a 5-star, except for the shorter stories. There's been a couple of 4 in there. So on average, they work out to about 4.5 stars. The next book that I read was My New Life as a Cat, Volume 1 by Konomi Wagata. It was a nice chill read. I haven't continued with the series. I don't think I will, but it's a good one for kids. I think that it's a lot of fun, and I gave it about 3 stars. Next, I read Your Weight Is Not the Problem by Lindy Cohen. This was just one of those ones that I picked up as sort of a reminder on my ever ongoing adventure with weight, self-love, and compassion. I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read was Gwen and Art Are Not in Love by Lex Croucher. This was actually so much fun. This was a YA. I haven't been really digging those lately, but this one was just hilarious. I really enjoyed it. 4 stars. Then I read Call Me By Your Name by Andre Asserman. This one I watched on my birthday last year, and a couple of days later I just had to pick up this book because I really didn't feel like I knew everything that was going on in the story, and it really did go internally. You sort of got more of a picture in the story of what they were thinking, how they were feeling, and despite the age gap, I actually really did enjoy this. And really, let's just thank the people that created the cover for making sure that you couldn't really see He Who Shall Not Be Named behind good old Mr. Chalamet. 4 stars, really good. Then I decided to listen to The Measure by Nikki Early. This was very sci-fi vibes. It was basically a box was landing on their doorstep and it was telling them how long they had left to live. I loved the story in theory. I thought this was such a good concept. But in action, I just felt like there wasn't quite enough. I don't know if I read too much sci-fi and if maybe I need to know like the why and the how in order to like be able to appreciate it. But yeah, it was okay. It was okay overall, 3 stars. Then I picked up The Guilty Wife by Nina Manning. This was just a thriller that I picked up from my secondhand bookstore locally. It was a couple of dollars. I thought I'd give it a go, and it kind of fits in that. Like, no surprises here. 3 stars. Then I picked up Hidden, book 1 in the Dragonlance series by Meg Jensen. This wasn't my favorite. I read to the end, I didn't DNF it, but I definitely don't think that I would continue the series. It kind of goes completely different direction to what I thought considering the name, but it was okay. 2.5 stars overall. Then I read the Into Shadow series. This is a collection of 7 short stories on Amazon. They're by different authors, and if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, you get to read them for free, which was what I got to do, thankfully. So I picked up The Garden by Tomi Adeyemi. This was a 2 star. I picked up Persephone by Lev Grossman, which was a 3 star. The 6 Deaths of the Saint by Alex E. Harrow was the best out of the lot, and that was 4 stars. What the Dead Know by Niveau, that was 3 stars. Undercover by Tamsin Muir, that was 3 stars as well. Candles Are Burning by Veronica Henry was also a 3 star, and Out of the Mirror, Darkness by Garth Nix was 3 stars. So overall rating about 3 stars. Then I picked up To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. I am a big fan of Becky Chambers' work, and no difference here. The only thing that I would say is I wish that it was longer. I knew that it was a novella going in, but I just wanted more. 4 stars though. The next one that I read was Secret of the Pink Pokemon by Tracy West. I read this one with my son. I do record the books that I've read with my son, and it's a Pokemon book. 3 stars, of course. Then The Creativity Zone, a personal development guide to discover and master the boundless possibilities of your unexplored creative mind by Amanda Watson. What a name. The cover's exquisite. That's what drew me in. But otherwise it was your stock standard sort of self-help book. If you've read it one before, you've read them all, you know? It was okay. 3 stars. Then 10 Things That Never Happened by Alexis Hall. Oh, this is seriously so cute. Like, I know it was pretty unbelievable, and that kind of annoyed me, but by the end I was just so sucked in. I just love that we get all of these fun little romps from Alexis. It's thank you. I gave it a 3 star, but I would say it's 3.5. In fact, I might have to amend the score because it's been a year, but I feel like I love it. I might have put the score down because of the unbelievability, but 3 to 5 to 4, I would say. Then I picked up The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. I was a huge fan of the movie, so when I got a chance to pick up a copy, I was ready. It provided a little bit more context and background to the movie, but I found it a little lacking. This one, however, was a total surprise. Spiderlight by Sarah Rain. This is one I randomly picked up. I don't know where, probably at the markets at some point. Probably thought it sounded good, and it was a real surprise. I ended up picking this out of like my TBR jar because I have to get through my TBR. And last year that was a really big goal of mine. It hooked me right in from the start. A very interesting thriller. Definitely trigger warnings, but I actually really thoroughly enjoyed this one. Such a surprise. 4 stars. Then Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. This was one that I'd heard a lot about, and I thought that it was great, if not devastating. It just made me really happy for the freedom that we have today. Could be better, but my goodness, it was a lot worse. 4 stars for that one. I also picked up Beloved by Toni Morrison. The last 4 were all for a 24-hour readathon challenge that I posted last year. If you want to go find that video to learn a bit more about them. This was a great magical realism story I'd heard a lot about as well. It's definitely a classic, and the story's heartbreaking. It's absolutely devastating, but so well done. 4 stars. So this one's going to take a little while because I have bunched all the Doctor Who books together, get them all out of the way because they are a comfort read. So I read 42 in total, and with the audios, the novels and the graphic novels, it was an overall star rating of 3.5 stars. But I read the 10th Doctor books, The Taking of Chelsea 426, Autonomy, The Krillatane Storm, the 11th Doctor books, Apollo 23, Night of the Humans, The Forgotten Army, Nuclear Time, The Ring of Steel, The Runaway Train, The Jade Pyramid, The Gemini Contagion, The Hounds of Artemis, Eye of the Jungle, Blackout, The Art of Death, Dark Star Academy, Day of the Cockroach, The New Human, The Empty House, Sleepers in the Dust, Snake Bite, and then the 12th Doctor books, The Gods of Winter, The House of Winter, The Sins of Winter, and The Memory of Winter, The Lost Angel, The Lost Planet, The Lost Magic, and The Lost Flame, Death Among the Stars, and Rhythm of Destruction. With the graphic novels, the 3rd Doctor, Heralds of Destruction, the 4th Doctor, Gaze of the Medusa, the 7th Doctor, Operation Volcano, the 8th Doctor, A Matter of Life and Death, which was a reread, the 9th Doctor Volume 1, Weapons of Past Destruction, which was also a reread, the 9th Doctor Volume 2, Doctor Mania, the 9th Doctor Volume 3, Official Secrets, the 9th Doctor Volume 4, Sin Eaters, and the 10th Doctor Archives Omnibus Volumes 1, 2, and 3. And of course, the 10th Doctor Volume 6, Sins of the Father, which was also another reread. I plan on reading these all in chronological order this year. I'll just love them. Then it was The Graft by Martina Cole. This kept me hooked, but it was over 600 pages. So I ended up unhauling it when I moved house, so that tells you everything. I didn't rate it at the time, but thinking back, I would probably say about 2.5 stars. It was readable, far too long, and pretty easy to figure out. Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. Now, this is book 2 in the Bright Falls series by Ashley Herring Blake. So this was an audio listen for me. I have the first book in hard copy, but I thought I would give the audio a go. I'm really glad I did. It was really cute, really sweet. And really, it kind of started a trend this year where I've basically listened to a lot of romance via audio. The next one in this series is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date, but I haven't gotten around to that yet. I'd really like to though, because I appreciate Iris's character. But Astrid Parker was 4 stars. Then I picked up Dracula. I decided to give this another go. I know that I definitely started it, but now that I've read this, I know I didn't finish it first time round. It's a classic for a reason, right? It was okay. 3 stars. This one I removed the cover off because it was from the library and it was covered in stickers, but it's a binge by Tyler Oakley. This one I picked up at a library book sale. It was an interesting read. I didn't really know a lot about Tyler Oakley. I knew he was one of the first famous YouTubers. And there were a few giggles, but it just didn't wow me. 3 stars. I heard that song before by Mary Higgins Clark. This was another one that I picked up secondhand. Didn't really know what I was in for. I was just trying to find some more thrillers, and this was pretty good. I haven't read any of her work before. I do have some more of her books to read. So I don't know if it's just, the first book in her series. So I don't really know how she writes. I don't know. But I enjoyed it. 3 stars. Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. This is a classic. This is one that I think everyone needs to read. Please pick up the trigger warnings because it is quite graphic in some areas and it can be a little bit disturbing. However, it is a vital read for everyone. I truly think. 4 stars. The Book You Want Everyone to Read by Philippa Perry. Yes, everyone should read it if they've never read a self-help book before or anything on the topic before. However, if you have, it's relatively stock standard, lots of reminders, really great reminders, but nothing I hadn't already read before. 3 stars. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now, I don't know if this is just because I picked it up via audio. I don't think that fantasies and audio really work for me. I tend to get a little bit confused and not able to keep track. It was one that I just couldn't really wrap my head around, and then once I started to wrap my head around it, it kind of felt very similar to other books I'd read. So I probably won't continue with this series. 3 stars for me. True Evil by Greg Isles was another one like The Graft. Picked it up, read it, it was alright, chucked it. The plot twists were pretty easy to figure out, but it was still an enjoyable read. 3 stars. Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This was an audio read and I did enjoy it. I love Stephen King's work, but I felt like this one kind of fell off at the end. 3 stars. The 4 to 7 Zone. This is another mouthful. An easy and effective way to live a balanced life and stay out of the therapist's office. This is by Coleman Nocta, but I want to make a point here that despite the title, I don't necessarily agree. I think therapy is vital, but moving on. It was just another generic sort of self-help book. I think that I've probably read too many in the similar genre. So I don't know if anyone has any really good recommendations of self-help awareness sort of books. Please let me know in the comments below, but this one was just a 3 stars for me. 4 a.m. Answers to the Conundrums That Keep You Up at Night by Zara McDonald was more of a Q&A session. I think it was by some podcasters, and some of what they shared resonated with me, but there was also a lot that didn't really relate to me. So It could have just been that I wasn't the target audience. This was just kind of a freebie I picked up on Audible, but it was 3 stars. It was not bad. Then Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane. This one was so silly. I know it's nonsensical. I know it's silly, but I loved it. 4 stars. The Monster Volume 5 by Naoki Urasawa. I love this series and I want to get the rest, and I need to finish the anime ASAP. This was a 4 star. The Time Traveler's Daughter by Emma Strike. This was one I decided to read as I love time travel, and it was a romance audio. It was okay. It wasn't my favorite in the genre, and I don't think I'll continue. 3 stars. Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. This had some really questionable content. The way that she met her husband and the way she tried to put that in a romantic light, it was really uncomfortable. 2 stars. Kill Your Husbands by Jack Heath. This was a fun little audiobook. This was a mystery that I just listened to as I was walking, and 3 stars. It was good. Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. This was pretentious and definitely not a light read by any means, but I was into it. 4 stars. The Great Gatsby. I've been trying to read a few more classics. I was expecting a little bit more. I don't know, 3 stars. Meet Cute Diary by Emily Lee. I'm becoming less and less inclined to pick up YA books. It's been really hit and miss, and this one was more of a miss for me. Just not my cup of tea, but the cover was really cute, and it was 3 stars. The War of Art, Break Through the Blocks and Win Your Inner Creative Battles by Stephen Pressfield. I did feel inspired after reading this, but I did struggle with some of the comments that the author made about procrastination and general well-being and health. 2 stars because of that. The Resilience Project, Finding Happiness Through Gratitude, Empathy and Mindfulness by Hugh Van Cuylenberg, had some good moments, but also some questionable ones. So 3 stars. 8 Rules of Love, How to Find It, Keep It and Let It Go by Jay Shetty. It was okay at the time. I thought it was really relevant, but it was relatively superficial. 3 stars. Hench by Natalie Zena. Wall Shots was one that I really, really enjoyed. I remember thinking I was hoping for a little bit more at the end, but I'm still going to read the second book when it comes out this year. So 3 stars. Time Travel Short Stories. This was edited by David Wittenberg. A bunch of short stories as well as sections of classic time travel stories. I picked this up thinking I've always wanted to venture into the classics, but classics are really hit and miss for me. So I didn't really want to invest in a whole heap of time travel classics for them to not be successful. So I picked this up and it was a bit of a long read. There were some great stories and there were also some stories that were not really my cup of tea. 3 stars. Average overall for the stories. Ancient as the Stars by Maya Dayani. That was a whirlwind. I couldn't keep on top of what was happening, but when it comes to time travel stories, I'm okay with that. I don't need to completely understand what's going on because time travel is crazy. I did enjoy this read, but it didn't end up being one of my favorites for the year, so it was 3 stars. The Time They Saved Tomorrow by Stephen Nallen. This was an arc that I picked up, but I didn't realize it was book 2 in the series. I've done that a couple of times this year, but it felt a bit like a filler with very little happening in the first half, and then the second half, like, stuff started happening, but then it ended and we didn't get the outcome of it. So for me, it was a little bit annoying. 3 stars. Cry of Fangs by Kaylee Alessi was another arc that I picked up. It's the first in the Of Vampires and Men series, and it was an interesting enough book to keep me hooked in, but I'm not sure if I'll continue with the series. It was 3 stars. Neon Gods by Katie Roberts was one that I picked up by audio, and it's an interesting read. It had me giggling and blushing the entire time. 3 stars. I ended up doing a reread of the Spy Family series. I've only brought the 1 book out from the kids' room, but I reread volumes 1 through to 9 before picking up volumes 10 and 11. Some of them do feel a little bit filler, but I love this series and I would give it an average of 4.5. Then I read the first 3 books in the Time Police series. This is the spin-off from the St. Mary's Chronicles by Jodie Taylor. This starts with Doing Time. This is a reread. I read this initially before the St. Mary's Chronicles series, really enjoyed it, wanted more information, and the reread was so much better, having that whole background of knowledge behind me. I also picked up Hard Time and then Saving Time. These were all books that I read in one sitting, by the way. Jodie Taylor can do no wrong in my eyes. All 5 stars. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This was, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, an audio that I picked up. And another classic I thought I'd give a go. Listening to the audio did make it a really nice experience. 3 stars. Then I finally jumped on the ACOTAR train. Oh, I was fighting it for so long, but I picked up the first book in the series, which was okay, and then the end blew me away. And then the rest of the books just kept going. Court of Frost and Starlight was probably my least favourite. And based on everything I heard about A Court of Silver Flames, I thought that I would have found it a bit much, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know what that says about me. It was my favourite of all of the books. So the average of the whole series was 4 stars. Okay, and then around this time of year, we're only up to May, my guys, but we can do this. I got into a serious graphic novel era, so there are a lot of graphic novels interspersed from here on in. I'll try not to go too much into them, but obviously if there are any that catch your eye, definitely check them out, no matter what my ratings are, basically. This is all my own opinion, but I can see that everybody would enjoy the books that I've picked up. Anyway, moving on. The first graphic novel was Everyone is Tulip by Dave Baker. Clever concept, but would have appreciated more story, 4 stars. What If We Were by Alexa Lenoir. This was a lot of fun, 4 stars. Patience and Esther by Sarah Sell Winifred. This was adorable, definitely an adult book, but adorable. 3 stars. Orphan Black Deviations by Helly Kennedy. This one threw me off initially, but then I realized that it was like a what if sort of scenario, sort of like Marvel. And I really loved the Orphan Black series. So this one was actually kind of a miss for me. I don't really plan on continuing with the series, 3 stars. Then I dived into more of the Sandman series. House of Whispers 1 to 3. So I read The Power Divided, Anansi, and Watching the Watchers by Naylor Hopkinson. These were okay, 3 stars. Then thanks to the library, I didn't have volumes 2 and 3, but I read Books of Magic Volume 1, Movable Type by Kat Howard, and Volume 4, Waking Hours by Willow G. Wilson. They were about 3.5 stars. They were pretty good. The Brain Fog Fix, Reclaim Your Focus, Memory, and Joy in Just 3 Weeks by Mike Dow. I didn't achieve it, but that's okay. 3 stars. It was still decent. Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This was a YA that I really thought was going to be a hit for me. It took me ages to get through. I enjoyed it, but it just didn't catch my interest. So 3 stars, unfortunately. I really thought I would enjoy this one. Here and Now and Then, by Mike Chen. This was so good, my guys. And there's a lot of time travel from here. 5 stars. Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. This was brutal. It was an arc that I picked up, really loved it, thoroughly enjoyed. Really like Andrew Joseph White's writing. 4 stars. I Am, 17 Brushes with Death by Maggie O'Farrell. This was my first Maggie O'Farrell, but definitely not the last one. This was a really interesting memoir. I thoroughly enjoyed it and it made me want to read more of her writing. 4 stars. The End of Gender, Debunking the Myths About Sex and Identity in Our Society by Deborah So. This was not at all what I hoped it would be, but I continued to listen just to see what she had to say, as it was very clear we had very differing opinions. It actually made me angry. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. 2 stars. The Ministry of Time by Kellyanne Bradley. This one, I expected something completely different, but I didn't mind what we got. This was more of a romance than anything, but it was still really good. 3 stars. Timeline by Michael Crichton. This just read like a Hollywood movie. 3 stars. Undoctored, the story of a medic who ran out of patience by Adam Kay. It was deep, impactful, and I really enjoyed it. I read these completely out of order, but I really love Adam Kay's work. I will read anything he writes. 3 stars. The Downloaded by Robert J. Sawyer. This was a lot of fun, but I think what really tipped it over the edge was the fact that Brendan Fraser was narrating the audio. So 4 stars. The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This was the first in the Bloodsworn saga and I was so excited to try these ones, but I don't know if it was just timing, but it really did not hit the mark for me. 3 stars. Same with Utopia Avenue by David Mitchell. This was far too long for very little plot line. 2 stars. I was starting to go into a bit of a reading slump here, so I picked up Keeper of the Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. I thought maybe a middle grade would work, and it's cute, but it's a middle grade. It didn't go... It really wasn't the right thing to pick up. 3 stars. 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think by Brianna Wiest. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if it's not. It was a series of essays. It was decent, but it wasn't revolutionary. 3 stars. Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This was another romance audio that I listened to. Oh my goodness, what an absolute crack up. I could not stop laughing. It was so hilarious. I'm probably gonna listen to the rest. at some point very soon. 3 stars. At this point, I was watching season 2 of Interview with the Vampire, and I decided to start reading the series again. Second time around reading Interview with the Vampire. I love the story, so it was still 4 stars, but I really see Louis in a different light now that I've watched the show, but still so good. Around this time of the year, I started delving into D&D, so I started picking up a lot of D&D themed books, including Critical Role, The Tales of Exandria, Volume 1, The Bright Queen by Darcy von Polgeist. This just needed a little bit more. I think I needed more background info. 3 stars. Then I picked up Wizards and Spells and Dungeons and Tombs. These are both by Jim Zub. They're a perfect middle grade explaining D&D. I found them really informative considering I literally did not know how to play it at all. So it was nice to have just a little bit of information. Both 4 stars. Rick and Morty vs. Dungeons and Dragons by Patrick Rothfuss. This was a lot of fun. Combining one of my favorite things with D&D made it a lot more interesting. 4 stars. Goblin by Eric Grissom. This was an excellent graphic novel. Don't need to say anything else. 5 stars. Paper Girls 1 to 6 by Brian K. Vaughan. I wanted to read these for a really long time, but I actually had no idea what they were about, and I was really pleasantly surprised. They were all 4 stars. Lore Olympus Volume 1 by Rachel Smythe. This was so cute, and I'm really desperate to continue the series. The library that I went to doesn't have the other volumes, and I haven't gotten around to finding them or sourcing them elsewhere, but I really want to continue it. It's very cute. When You're Ready, This Is How You Heal by Brianna West. This is another one that I read by her, another essay series. I enjoyed this one more than the other one. I think it was a bit more relevant at the time. 4 stars. The Magic Fish. This was an amazing graphic novel. So good. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. 5 stars. Lightfall books 1 to 3 by Tim Probert. I read The Girl and the Galdurian, Shadow of the Bird, and The Dark Times. The art was so adorable in this, and the story was really cute. 5 stars. Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl by Andrea Lawler. I was so excited about this one, and damn did it underdeliver. I needed more. I needed why. I needed the how. It was a little bit lacking. Very sad about it. 3 stars. Dark One by Brandon Sanderson is a graphic novel that I really enjoyed. I'm sad there aren't any more, but I did see that there is an audio. I probably will. Let's be honest, I'll read everything that he writes. 4 stars. I attempted to read A Shade of Mine series by D.N. Leo. This was Random Psychic and Forever Mortal before I gave it up. It just didn't really hook me in. So 2 stars. Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Z. Bright. However, that hooked me in. That was insane. It was like so many trigger warnings, but if you love horror and you love grotesque, you love this. I couldn't put it down. I read it in one day. 4 stars. Breakland Season 1 The Chase by Justin Jordan. This was a dystopian graphic novel that I enjoyed. 4 stars. I haven't read Ember in the Ashes by Sabah Tahir, but I did pick up A Spark Within the Forge, which is the second graphic novel in the prequel. I'm intrigued to look into it now. I didn't mind it. It was 3 stars. Then I picked up the first volume of the graphic novel adaptation of The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. It was alright. It didn't really prompt me to pick up the other novel, and then with the Neil Gaiman drama, I made the decision to pull back just a little bit on the amount of love for his work. Crumbs by Danny Sterling. This was really cute and I keep thinking about it, so there will probably be a reread in the future. This was 4 stars. Something Spectacular is the second book in the Something Fabulous series by Alexis Hall. I haven't read the first one, but that didn't really matter. This was a standalone. It was hilarious. I love historical fiction, and I thought that it was hilarious that so much occurred that just would never have happened in that actual time period. But it was so good. I didn't really understand the connection between the 2 main characters, but it was funny enough and quirky enough for me to be able to kind of look past that. 4 stars. Then there's quite a few graphic novels here, so I'll quickly go through them. Betty and Veronica, The Bond of Friendship was a cute addition to the Archie graphic novels. I read the old ones when I was a kid, and it was interesting to see the changes that have occurred over the years. 3 stars. Then I read the Sherlock manga series, so I read volumes 1, 2, and 3. A Study in Pink, The Blind Baker, and The Great Game. They all made me want to sit down and watch the series properly. I haven't done that yet. It's just the storyline of the show, but I enjoyed it. Average was 3 stars. Another D&D graphic novel that I picked up, Dungeons and Dragons, Forgotten Realms by Ed Greenwood. nothing to write home about really, 2 stars. Are There Ever Afters? New Queer Fairy Tales by Melanie Gilman though. Amazing, 5 stars. Kisses for Jeff was another great trans memoir graphic novel, 4 stars. Another one by Sarah Winifred Searle, I read The Greatest Thing. This was another great graphic novel, 4 stars. Out of Nothing by David Blandy. This was awesome, albeit very brief. I wish there was more, but it was an overview of our history, just science-wise, bing bang, everything, 5 stars. So good. Cyberpunk 2077, Trauma Team 1 by Cullen Bunn was a graphic novel I didn't really understand, but it was my first venture into that world, so that was probably the problem. 3 stars. Renegade Rule by Ben Kahn was incredibly fun. I loved the queer representation in that so much. 4 stars. The Witch's Hand, the Montague Twin graphic novel series volume 1 by Nathan Page. This was okay. I love the coming out aspect, but the story didn't hook me in, so won't continue with the series. 3 stars. All This and More by Peng Shepherd. This was the one I listened to in audio. I loved the choose your own adventure and choose your own ending. But again, I was hoping for a little bit more. 3 stars. Squire was another graphic novel. I appreciated the storyline, but I don't really remember much about it. So 3 stars. As part of the Her Kid Challenge, I had to read a classic and then an adaptation of the classic. So I chose to read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen and then the manga adaptation by Stacey King. To be honest with you, I preferred the manga. I know that's so bad. That's such a terrible thing to say, but I just find classics a real struggle to slog through sometimes. And I thought that the art in the manga was just super cute. So I gave the classic 3 stars and I gave the manga 4 stars. Mums by Yong Shin Ma was one that I was really excited about reading. I thought that the concept was really cute. I found it a real struggle to read. I know that it's based on true events, and the actions were true, but I still found it to be a little bit devastating that the people were making the choices that they were making. And the ending was really underwhelming. So 2 stars, unfortunately. Witchy Volume 1 by Ariel Slamet-Ries. I am so terrible at this. I don't know why I keep saying authors' last names. But it's a fun concept where the length of their hair determines their strength of magic. It was okay, 3 stars. Regenerated by Joe Sugg was volume 2, another one where I didn't realize I'd picked up volume 2, but without reading book 1, you could sort of understand what was going on, and I enjoyed it. 3 stars. Whisper by Lynette Noni was one that I'd heard about. It's a YA. It's based in Australia. I'm from Australia, so, it's good to represent ourselves sometimes, but it was very much 2010 YA vibes, so it was alright. 3 stars. The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. This is another audio romance that I listened to. Funny queer romance set in the backdrop of Europe. I just enjoyed it. I loved it. I love everything I've read so far of Casey McQuiston's. 4 stars. The House of Elle, Volume 1, The Shadow Threat by Claudia Gray. I picked this one up because Claudia Gray has written one of my favourite YA series, but I had no idea that this was set in Krypton and was based on Superman. It was decent. 3 stars. Fangirl, Volume 1. Adapted from Rainbow Rowell's books by Sam Maggs. This was volume 1. It was very cute. I know I've read it, but I couldn't remember the story. But I think I'd like to continue reading it in graphic novel format. It's very cute. Under Earth by Chris Gooch. This was a dystopian graphic novel and over 500 pages, which meant that I had all the context I wanted. I feel like all graphic novels should be that big. It was dark and full of morally grey characters, but I really enjoyed it. 3 stars. Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe was another great gender memoir. In graphic novel format. I always enjoy them that way. I also noticed it's one of the books read by Isaac in season 3 of Heartstopper, which is definitely something I'm going to do a video on very soon. 4 stars. Another gender memoir that I picked up was Tomboy by Liz Prince. This was another 4 star. I also managed to pick up This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. This was his first book, but I'd already read the other 2 of his books, but I absolutely love this one. Instantly ended up going and watching the TV show, and Ben Whishaw, I know, he's gay, I don't care. 5 stars. The Utterly Uninteresting and Unadventurous Tales of Fred the Vampire Accountant by Drew Hayes. This was a freebie on Kindle, and it's like a short story collection of little snippets of this vampire accountant's life, and it's so funny. It ends up getting really adventurous in the end and actually really interesting. And there's 7 more books in the series, and I will probably delve into them at some point. 4 stars. How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. This was another one I thoroughly enjoyed. I've enjoyed Matt Haig's work before, and this had a time component to it, which meant it was great. Right down my alley. 4 stars. Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. This was the prequel to Legends and Lattes, and it was enjoyable, but it just didn't hold a candle to Legends and Lattes. Still good though. 4 stars. Beauty and the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. First in the Lock Tomb series. I listened to this in audio and thought it was hilarious. It was an absolute laugh. I'm currently working my way through the second one actually. 4 stars. Queer Life, Queer Love is a short story collection edited by Matt Bates. This had some great stories in it, but also some that just weren't up my alley. So on average, it was 3 stars. I then reread The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. This was great. I love Lestat. So 4 stars. The Highly Sensitive Person, How to Thrive When the World Overwhelms You by Elaine and Aaron was one I picked up due to the stresses of the year. And though it was affirming, it wasn't revolutionary. 3 stars. When You Least Expect It by Haley Cass. This was a really cute LGBT romance that I picked up via audio, and I really appreciated the storyline and the fact that the love interest was this single mum and that it wasn't an insta-lovey story. It grew over time. 4 stars. Uno Out of Order by Margarita Montemore. This is another timey-wimey sort of one. I'm so glad I picked up a hard copy. I really loved this. I read it so fast. 4 stars. The Natural Way of Things by Charlotte Wood. This was one I picked up at an op shop thinking that it sounded really interesting. It had dystopian vibes and it was set in the Australian outback. I ended up pretty disappointed with the ending, and it also ended up being unhauled. 2 stars. Somewhere Beyond the Sea, book 2 of the Cerulean Chronicles by TJ Klune. It was just as wonderful as The House in the Cerulean Sea, and I'm so glad that I listened to it in audio. There were so many laugh out loud moments. 4 stars. Deadweight by Matt Casamassina was a dystopian novel that I listened to via audio, and it was great. Loads of character development, which I really appreciated. 3 stars. A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Fazal. This was one I was incredibly excited about, though it took me quite a while to get to it. It's the usual YA fantasy premise. It had a heist in it. I'm unsure if I will continue the series when it comes out, but it'll really depend on how exciting the second book sounds. 3 stars. First We Make the Beast Beautiful by Sarah Wilson. This had some good moments, but also some questionable moments. 3 stars. Girl Crush by Florence Given. This was an interesting retelling of a woman's coming out experience whilst being an influencer, and how this can go really negatively very quickly and not in the way you'd think. 3 stars. The Dictionary of Lost Words by Pip Williams. This was an historical fiction I thoroughly enjoyed, set around the creation of the dictionary. 3 stars. Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. This was a short but sweet enemies to lovers romance set at a snow resort. I had fun listening to this one. 3 stars. Atlas of the Heart, mapping meaningful connection and the language of human experience by Brene Brown. I am a Brene Brown fan, so I really enjoyed this. I might be biased, but I really enjoyed the breakdown of emotions and their potential meanings, and I gave it 4 stars. One Day by David Nichols. I watched the TV show and I had to pick up the book because it absolutely broke my soul. Despite knowing what was going to happen at the end, I thoroughly enjoyed the book. I did enjoy the TV show more, and I'm definitely keen on watching the movie because I love the concept and the story. I did give it 4 stars though. Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. Now I remember loving this one, and I know it was about a female photographer that exclusively photographed and unalived her male models. However, I can't really remember the story. It hasn't stuck with me. I gave it 4 stars. Don't know if it's 4 stars now. Shadows of Self and Bands of Mourning, Mistborn 5 and 6, or 2 and 3 of the second era. These are not my favourite, but I appreciate the steampunk vibes. 4 stars. A Walk Between Raindrops by Amelie Yarn, I think, was one I picked up thinking it was time travel. I was very off, but it was a decent YA, and the twist at the end did get me, I have to admit. 3 stars. The Queen of the Damned. This is volume 3 of The Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. This was where I got up to last time. I have not read any since I finished this one, only because they just seem to be a really slow read for me. So I need to take breaks in between because I get really frustrated when a book takes ages for me to get through. I do love the story though, 4 stars. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I smashed through this one and I really enjoyed the magical realism and the circus vibes. 4 stars. In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This is another one I picked up because I just love his books, especially in audio. And this was a great twist on the classic Pinocchio story. 4 stars. Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. This was a decent read, classic King style. And I've since started the series and I am enjoying that so far. The TV series. 3 stars. Best Men by Sydney Carger. This was a funny read with definite enemies to lovers vibes. But the main guy's jealousy just got me aggro, man. So bad. 3 stars. Really Madly Guilty. Please ignore the sticker. Obviously picked it up at the markets. I don't mind Leanne Moriarty's books. They're quick reads. They usually do get me with the twist at the end, and this was no exception. 3 stars. My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Bachman. This is funny and interesting, but the grandmother felt a little bit problematic and the granddaughter came across as a bit much. But overall it was okay. 3 stars. Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I gave this a go in audio. It was decent. It didn't quite catch me like the Avatar, but it is YA. I will continue with the series though. 4 stars. Sounds Like You by Elise Adams. I'll admit, I picked this up because of Oliver Mills. Georgia McCullen as well, but mostly Oliver Mills. And this was a very sweet romance, and I'm glad I listened to it. 3 stars. The List by Yomi Adegoke. This could have been so good. The concept was so good, but I just kind of missed the mark for me a little bit. 3 stars. Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. We're back to Maggie. This is about Shakespeare's son Hamnet. I really enjoyed it, even though it was incredibly sad. 4 stars. Maybe This Time by Cara Bastone. This was another cute time travel romance audio, so of course I enjoyed it. 4 stars. The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North. This was such an interesting concept and I did not want this book to end. It was 4 stars. So because I didn't want it to end, I picked up Replay by Ken Grimwood. Very, very similar vibes. And it also delivered. I just love any books to do with time, guys. Any suggestions? You know what to do. The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Leong. This was to complete my prompt of new releases, reading them in the months that they're released, which is part of the Herkyed Challenge. And this was a really cozy mystery I would recommend, especially if you liked Legends on Lattes. 4 stars. Almost there, guys. Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I was initially hesitant to read this because I've read the Nevernight series and I could see the problematic parts to that series, but this was a very happy surprise and I immediately picked up volume 2. It's in my room, ready to go. 4 stars. Impossible by Sarah Lotz. This ended up being a time travel book. I didn't realize, I just read the back and thought it was pretty cool, and it said, I feel the same way as when I read One Day. So I was like, okay, I need to pick another one I enjoyed. 4 stars. Every Heart a Doorway, book 1 in the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. I've been wanting to read this for ages and it was an awesome start to the series. I will be continuing at some point. 4 stars. Women Don't Know You Pretty by Florence Given. This was okay. Some good points are covered and it was a good start into delving deeper into feminism, which is a topic I really want to get more into reading and understanding. 3 stars. Big Swiss by Jen Began. This was problematic characters doing problematic things, and I enjoyed that. 3 stars. Dialect for Aunties by Jess Q. Sutanto. A funny, very unbelievable comedy romance, but it was so much fun. 3 stars. The Time Traveler's Wife by Audrey Niffenegger. This was one I actually ended up having to push through. Some of the bits felt icky and problematic. And there was some pages in this where I was like, is this necessary? Anyway, I've heard the movie's good, so I'll give that a go. And I've heard the TV series is a hit or miss, so I want to give that a go as well because the concept is good. I love time travel. So 3 stars. Tampa by Alyssa Nutting. This was horrific. It was a bit like a car crash. I couldn't look away. It's very triggering. Check your trigger warnings 100%, but damn, she wrote it well. 4 stars. Helldivers, the first in the series by Nicholas Sainsbury Smith. This is a dystopian sci-fi series and it was decent, but I probably won't continue. 3 stars. Notes on an Execution by Danya Kafka is a story about a serial killer, but it's mostly told from the perspective of the people that were impacted by his crimes. Really good. 4 stars. The Bone Witch by Rin Chupeco. To be honest, this was one that I listened to because the freebie was expiring on the last day of the year. And though it had me interested, I probably won't finish the series. It is 3 stars for me. The Long Earth by Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter. I had high hopes for this. The concept was interesting. It did have that humor, the Terry Pratchett humor, but it didn't have that sizzle. It didn't have that Terry Pratchett that just works. But it was okay. 3 stars. Under Lock and Key by Lana Ferguson. Who knew that a spicy romance where the male love interest is the Loch Ness Monster would be a hit? But here we are, 4 stars. The Hardest Star by Megan Rogers. This is an interesting literary novel, though there were some questionable moments and it didn't go where I thought it would go, but it wasn't bad. 3 stars. After the Party by Lisa Jewell. I have heard of Lisa Jewell's thrillers and I thought I'd give this one a go. Yet again, another market pickup, not realizing book 2 in the series. I was able to read it without too many issues. I wouldn't mind reading book 1 to find out the context, but it also didn't hook me in enough to make that a big priority. So just didn't hit the mark. 2 stars. Oathbringer Part 1 by Brando Sando. Guys, it's a series you need to read. I have nothing else to say. I'm reading Part 2 already. 5 stars. I See You by Greg Hurwitz. This would have been an okay thriller if he stopped telling us how much he loved LA. This guy loves living in LA, guys. Just in case you don't know. The ending was meh. 2 stars. And last, but certainly not least, I read the Graham Saga books 1 to 3. So I read A Rip in the Veil, like Chaff in the Wind, and The Prodigal Son. These are by Annabelle Frage. And look, it was okay, but it had very similar vibes to Outlander, and Matthew Graham just could never, like, Jamie is so much of that. He could never hold a torch to Jamie, I'm sorry. But look, they were good to listen to. However, I found it really difficult to believe that she came from like 2011 and then decided to stay in the 1600s and live the life that she did. I don't know, no spicy time is worth that in my opinion. But they were all 3 stars overall. And finally, that is all of them. That's the 275 books that I read this year. It was a big year. I have plenty of plans though for 2025. We are a few days into it already, but I have plans. I'm hoping to get back into this and spend a lot more time with you guys, but in the meantime, I would love to hear what was your favorite books that you read last year. How many did you get through? You know, any number is amazing. It's better than like 75% of the population. So pat yourself on the back. If you're new here, please subscribe. But until next time, enjoy the rest of your time, your day, your night, whatever's going on for you. Enjoy it, rest. I hope you got to have a really nice cup of tea and relax while you listened and watched this. If you got this far, thank you so much. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video very, very soon. Goodbye, my darlings.